There's a number that decides whether a woman feels like she has something to wear every single morning or nothing at all, and almost everyone guesses it wrong. Most people assume the answer is more. More shoes, more options, more choice. So let's start with what's actually in most closets. Somewhere between 20 and 30 pairs of shoes. That number barely moves as women get older. What changes is the feeling of standing in front of them. Ask a woman with 30 pairs what she's wearing tonight, and there's a real chance she's still standing there 10 minutes later, having picked up and put back half the shelf, reaching for the same 2 pairs she always reaches for, while the other 28 do nothing but take up space and collect dust in boxes she can't even remember buying. There's a small, specific group of women who never have that problem. French women, generally past 60, who open a closet holding a fraction of the options everyone else has, and never once feel stuck. It isn't luck, it isn't money either. Plenty of them aren't spending more than anyone else, they're just spending differently, on fewer things that are built to actually last. Somewhere along the way, most of them close this question permanently, often decades before they turn 60. And just as telling as what they chose to keep is what they quietly stopped buying altogether. We'll get to exactly what that is, because it explains this entire list almost as much as the 5 shoes themselves do. But first, the part that actually explains everything. How few pairs it actually takes to solve this for good, once you pick the right ones and stop second-guessing the decision every season. Here's something worth trying tonight. If you're the kind of woman who stood in front of a full closet feeling like you own nothing, count your shoes. Not to feel bad about the number, just to see it clearly, the way you'd look at a bank statement you've been avoiding. Most women are surprised by how high it actually is. Tell me your number in the comments, because I think you'll be shocked, and I want to know if you're closer to 20 or closer to 40. And if this is your first time here, this channel exists to break down exactly what makes certain women look effortlessly put together over 60. Not trends, not hauls, just what genuinely works and why it works. Subscribing means you won't miss the next one. The answer to that closet problem is 5 shoes. Not 5 categories, not 5 loose types you could interpret 5 different ways. 5 specific pairs, chosen once, worn for decades, replaced only when they're truly finished. Here's the first one, and it's the one people misjudge the most. The ballet flat has an image problem outside France. It gets filed under backup plan, the shoe you switch into once your feet give up, not something chosen on purpose. That was never the French read on it. In 1956, a young Brigitte Bardot, a trained dancer, asked a small Paris workshop called Repetto for something as flexible as a real ballet slipper, but sturdy enough for the street. That shoe showed up in the film that made her famous, and within months, a rehearsal shoe built for dancers had become shorthand for effortless style. Nearly 70 years later, the same silhouette is still made almost stitch for stitch, down to the rounded toe and the small front detail. No reinvention needed, because the original was never trying to chase anything. But here's the part that actually matters more than the history. The reason that shoe survives decades, while a cheaper one falls apart in a single season, comes down to one measurement almost nobody checks: how snug it sits at the heel. Loose at the heel, and a flat slips with every step. Once it slips, it loses its shape within months, and it quietly drops out of rotation. Fit it snug, and it holds through an entire day on cobblestones without stretching out, without needing a second glance. Add to that real leather's one real advantage over anything synthetic. It darkens and softens exactly where the foot moves, instead of cracking and peeling the way a synthetic upper eventually does. One measurement, one material choice, and that's the whole reason this shoe is still in rotation 20 years later, while the trendier flat bought the same year is long gone. If the flat solves comfort without giving up polish, the second shoe solves something else entirely: how to look put together on a day you're not thinking about looking put together at all. The leather loafer entered French wardrobes in the 1970s and never really left. There's something slightly blunt about a loafer, a refusal to be overly delicate, and that's exactly the appeal. Under a wide-leg trouser, it lengthens the whole line of the leg. Under a pleated skirt at the right length, it's the combination street photographers have caught on the sidewalks of Paris for 50 years, and it still reads as deliberate rather than dated, never like something dug out of a closet from decades back. The version that shows up most is a penny loafer or a snaffle bit style in black or warm tan calf leather, with a heel low enough, 2 or 3 centimeters, to add structure without making it impractical to actually walk anywhere in actual weather, on an actual errand run. This is the shoe worn on autopilot, put on without a second thought, and once you see what all 5 of these are really doing, autopilot turns out to describe most days. Quick reason to stick around if you're finding any of this useful. Every week here, we go one level deeper than most style videos bother to, into the actual details that make something last instead of just look good for a season. Comfort solved. Autopilot solved. The third shoe solves a problem most people assume can't be solved at all past a certain age. How to keep the polish of a heel without paying for it in pain. The low-heeled pump is the one that trips people up, because giving up a very high heel sounds like giving up on dressed up entirely, and it isn't. Somewhere past 60 hours in a tall heel stop, making sense no matter how much someone loves the look. And French women arrive at that same point with a replacement already chosen, not a gap in the wardrobe. 4 to 6 centimeters, a block heel, or a rounded kitten heel. At that height, weight distributes correctly across the foot, so the shoe survives an entire evening, dinner through the walk home, without the damage a taller heel causes over time, and it handles uneven old stone streets, which in a city like Paris isn't hypothetical, it's just Tuesday. The color is almost always a plain, confident black, sometimes camel or tobacco. Rarely glossy patent, because that finish dates a shoe the moment you see it, and rarely a sharp point, for the same reason. This pump has likely seen more dinners and more evenings out than almost anything else in the closet, and it doesn't get retired just because trends shift around it. When the heel wears down, it goes to a cobbler and comes back into rotation rather than into the donation pile. The fourth shoe isn't really about an outfit at all. It's about surviving an entire season without a single other purchase, without a scramble to replace something that gave out halfway through February. The ankle boot is the closest thing to a year-round workhorse in the whole collection. Autumn, winter, into early spring, no swap needed. Under jeans, under wide trousers, under a midi skirt with a heavy sweater on top, and it disappears into the outfit completely, which is exactly what a genuinely useful object is supposed to do. Deep black most often, weathered dark brown a close second, heel flat or close enough to it that it barely registers. No last-minute upgrade to something with more lift, ever. What makes it last isn't the leather grade or the brand, it's a stitching method called the Goodyear welt, a strip that runs the entire perimeter of the shoe connecting the upper to the sole. Cobblers have used it for over a century, for one simple reason. Without it, a worn-through sole means a dead shoe, nothing left to repair, straight to the trash. With it, the sole comes off and gets replaced, again and again, while the boot that already molded to your foot stays exactly the same. A boot like this may already be on its second sole and still have a decade left in it. 4 shoes down. And the fifth is the one that surprises people the most. Not because it's exotic or unexpected in some dramatic way, but because it's the last thing anyone expects to see sitting comfortably next to a pair of Repetto flats and a pair of tailored pumps. Stick around for it, because it changes how the other 4 actually make sense together, and it's the piece that ties this entire list into one coherent idea instead of 5 separate purchases. The fifth shoe is a plain white leather sneaker. Not a running shoe, nothing technical, nothing that signals sport in any way. Flat, clean, the same full-grain leather as the rest of this list, on a thin, simple sole. It's built for a slow Saturday morning in Paris, and that's more or less exactly when it gets worn, with the same trousers as the loafer, or with jeans and a plain linen shirt. It shows up on market days, on long travel days, on any day that used to force a choice between looking finished and actually being comfortable for 8 hours straight. This shoe removes that choice, and because it's leather instead of canvas, it ages the way the flat does, a warmth building at the toe over years instead of a yellowing that ends in the trash after 2 summers. A 10-year-old one, cared for, doesn't look worse than a new one. It looks chosen and then looked after, which is the entire quiet argument this whole list has been making from the very first shoe. Which brings us back to what these women stopped buying altogether, because it explains this whole list as much as the 5 shoes do. No stiletto worn for looks alone, no patent finish, no disposable canvas sneaker built to last 1 season, no stiff, boxy toe fighting the line of the leg, and no shoe bought to match one single outfit instead of an entire wardrobe. Every one of those is a shoe built to be replaced, and replacing things forever was never the plan. None of this requires a European price tag either. If you're shopping for the same effect on a smaller budget, the construction matters far more than the label ever will. Check the heel for snugness before you check the brand name stamped inside. Feel for real leather instead of a coated synthetic. Real leather has a slight give and a faint smell that a leather look upper never quite manages to fake. And choose a wide, low heel over a stiletto every single time, because that's the actual difference between a shoe you wear for 1 season and a shoe you're still wearing for 10, regardless of what it cost you on day 1. That's the real idea underneath all of this. A closet with 30 pairs that still produces nothing to wear is a question that reopens every season, because most of those 30 were never built to survive more than a couple of years of real use in the first place. They wear out, they get replaced, and the exact same frustration comes right back around 6 months later. 5 shoes, chosen once and built to last decades, closes that question for good, permanently, in a way 30 pairs never managed to. Buy it once, buy it properly, and stop thinking about it. That's not a compromise, it's the entire strategy. French women over 60 didn't discover some secret the rest of the world missed. They just stopped treating a solved problem like an open one. And that shift, more than any brand name, more than any price tag, is the entire reason those 5 pairs are still standing in their closets today, while everyone else is still out shopping for pair number 31, wondering why nothing ever quite feels finished. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 you already own, and if you're not sure yet, tell me which one surprised you most: the flat, the boot, or the sneaker. Share this with the friend who says she has nothing to wear while standing directly in front of a full closet, because she needs to hear this as much as you did. And subscribe before you go, because next time we're breaking down the 5 pieces of clothing that follow this same exact rule, and it might change your closet just as much as this one just did.